welcome to the Oxygenaddict Triathlon Podcast. We're brought to you every week by our sponsors, precisionhydration.com.
Leaders in triathlete sweat testing and hydration with multi-strength electrolytes that match how you sweat. You can get 15% off with the code Oxygenaddict15.
And also with Team Oxygen Addict at team.oxygenaddict.com.
Which offers event-specific training plans, coaching guidance from Coach Rob Wilby.
Hello.
And supportive teammates in a private Facebook group.
All right, and welcome to the show this fine week. It's the 25th of July as we record, and we are back, Helen. We are back properly, both in the same country, both at the same time, both mostly awake, ready to kick it with a new show.
We are indeed, and got loads coming up in today's show, Rob. We have an interview with Mr. Chris McCormack.
None other than Macca.
Yep, so he tells us all about Super League, and I really enjoyed talking to Macca. He doesn't hold back, does he? He tells you what he thinks, and he always has done, and he probably always will do. But it's good, it's open, it's frank, it's honest. He also talks a bit about Alistair Brownlee, so listen out for that one.
All right, cool stuff. And we've also got a whole bunch of results. We've got a coach's couch, and we've got some news and some interesting topics of conversation from our Twitter feed this week. So let's jump straight into results this week. Results this week are brought to us by our longtime sponsors, precisionhydration.com. Their special offer for you this week is if you purchase anything from them using the code Oxygenaddict15, you'll also get a free 1 litre drinks bottle to go with your purchase, which is brilliant. So get yourself your hydration salts, especially this time of year when it's incredibly hot out there. As I'm looking out my window, Helen, it must be 12 or 13 degrees C outside my window in right now in England. So lots of hydration salts needed today. Seriously though, if you're racing in hot weather, absolutely essential to keep on top of your electrolytes, and these guys are the best in the business. So get over and check them out at precisionhydration.com. And
we will be announcing the winner of the competition at the end of the results section. So we ran a competition for the past 2 weeks to coincide with Ironman UK.
Let's do it now.
It was a £100 personalised precision hydration bundle from the guys. So we will be announcing that in the next few minutes.
Do not forget, Helen. You know what I'm like.
No, I won't. Don't you worry.
Forget.
It's on my. It's like, it's right there. I've got it.
I love it. Right, so results from this week. We're going to start with the Outlaw Iron Distance race here in Nottingham, England, which looks like it was another brilliant, well-attended event, probably the biggest non-branded event in the UK, and some amazing performances out there, record-breaking performances from our winners this week, weren't there?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think we've got to start with Jill Fullen, Rob.
We have to.
Jill,
she's my idol.
Absolutely incredible athlete. We heard from her after she won the Outlaw Half at Nottingham. We heard how she had been dealing with cancer over the past 18 months. And so to see her get the win at the Outlaw full distance triathlon with a new course record, the fact that, she's turning 53 this year, she's just absolutely amazing.
Mind-blowing performance, and her time was 9:44, was it? I think from memory. Let me scroll down. 9:44. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, brilliant. She had to do the last to get the course record. I think she had to run the last 5k in 24 minutes.
Easier said than done at the end of an Ironman. So she really pushed herself all the way, didn't she?
Yep. So blooming brilliant. And the photos are I love the photo of Joe Carrott and Louise Harris either side of her, pouring Erdinger all over her. That's what they do at the Outlaw, sponsored by Erdinger, and they have the Erdinger showers at the end. So these massive glasses of beer all over the winner. No champagne there.
Love it. So as we've mentioned there, the women's race won by Jill Fullen in 9:44 from Joe Carrott in 10:03 and Louise Harris in 10:04. So wow, close finish there for second and third. Over in the men's race, it was another stonking performance from Kit Walker, who broke the course record as well.
Yep, he did 8:39. Really, really great result from Kit, who won it last year as well, didn't he?
He did, yeah. So That's astonishingly quick. It is a quick course, but it's not that quick. Do you know what I mean? There's some really rough roads coming into and out of the area, and it's a taxing marathon going round the lake and back mentally, I think. So super impressive performance from him going 8:39 on that course.
Yeah, utterly awesome. So Martin Cheswick was second in 8:53 and Matt Lehman third in 8:54. So again, really close between second and third. And I know Kit listens to the show, Rob, and
let's get him on. Let's get him on as a guest. We've had a little sound bite from him, haven't we? But we've never had the full interview.
I'll leave that down to you.
I'm doing it. Kit, get in touch. We want you on. We have had Jill Fullen on in the past. We had her on episode 34, so get back and listen to that one. And you know what, she's probably due a second interview, isn't she, after performances like this year. Coming back from cancer to do this is blooming phenomenal.
We had her on after the Outlaw half win.
We did, didn't we?
Oh yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did. I thought it was just a snippet. It was yeah. Oh, my brain's in bits today.
So yeah, but brilliant results from Outlaw. And Rob, we mentioned Matt Turnbull last week, who was doing 7 sort of Outlaw distance races in 7 days. So he did do number 7 at the weekend, and he raised £7,000 for charity.
Phenomenal.
Then this I loved. Shout out to Tom Jones from West Wales, who finished in 10:56 as part of a stag do with 15 friends. Do you have 15 friends, Rob, who would do an iron distance race with you?
I don't have 15 friends that would thank me for saying we're going to do the Outlaw for my stag do. Nice work, Tom. Love it.
I love the fact that his friends did it. Maybe some of them, I don't know, maybe they all did the full distance. Perhaps some of them did the relay. But yeah, that is brilliant. I remember doing a run once, a trail run, and a girl was on her hen do, and I thought, oh, that's brilliant. That is a great way to spend a hen do. Go camping with your friends for the weekend, do a little run. Perfect.
There was somebody, do you remember when I did Triathlon X, there was somebody halfway up the mountain who was on her hen do with a few friends who recognised the t-shirt.
Yeah.
It was like, oh yeah, I'm a listener of the show. It's like, hardcore. Love it.
Brilliant.
We've also got a shout out to listener Alan Prentice, who sent us a message on Twitter.
Yep. Alan says, thanks to the excellent podcasts. They helped me on my way to becoming an outlaw. First attempt at a long distance, 12 hours and 34 minutes. So well done, Alan.
Nice work, Alan. All right, next set of results from today. We've got another win for our friend Laura Siddle over in Challenge Roma.
Correct. So the distances for this one, Rob, were a little bit different because it was inspired by the year that Rome was founded in 753 BC. So they had a 1,753 metre swim. They had a 75.3k bike and a 17.5k run.
I think they missed the opportunity to just have a 753 metre swim now myself, Helen. I think triathletes around the world would have flocked to that. Yes, really short swim.
Yeah, they just stick a random little 1 in front of that one.
Yeah, good. So another great result for Sid on the back of her second at Challenge Roth. Was it 2 weeks ago now?
Yeah,
time's flying at the moment. So
as rugby coaches would say, great bounce back ability.
They would they?
They'd say physicality, and also they'd use the word bounce back ability.
I think we're gonna copyright that for Helen Murray. Bounce back ability, copyright Helen Murray.
Well, no, it's copyright rugby coaches. Oh yeah, great bounce back ability. So well done, Sid, with your bounce back ability. 3:20 ahead of Sophie Goose from Belgium in 3:24, and Erica Cosmore of Hungary in 3:27. In the men's, Rob?
The men's race, Sven Riederer won it in 2:55 from Giulio Molinari in 2:56 and Dylan McNeese from New Zealand in third in 2:58. And shout out to youngster Elliot Smales down in 6th place as well with another fantastic bike run combo, getting stronger every race. So I think we're going to see the podium and then the top step of the podium for him very, very shortly. He's a very promising young talent.
Excellent. Over in France, this is the Ironman that you did, isn't it, Rob? A few years ago, you did the tough course that is Ironman France in Nice, didn't you?
Fantastic. Yeah, that was it was Freddie Van Leert's first win at Ironman France in 2012, the year that I did it, and it's a brilliant race for anybody who's even vaguely considering it. Really, really hot, really amazing bike course that is sort of one loop out into the mountains with loads and loads of climbing. There's one proper enormous alpine climb that's about 20k long that comes pretty early on in the bike course, and it's just an incredible experience to go out there and do it. So get yourself out to Ironman France in Nice. There's obviously a massive triathlon heritage there because they had the Nice long course there for over a decade in the days of Mark Allen, and they adapted that course to become Ironman France. So previous Kona winner Freddie Van Leert, he's not really had those astonishing performances in the last couple of years, and I think people were starting to wonder whether his best days were behind him, but it's fantastic to see him go in and do this. Takes the win in 8:31 from, come on, help me out, Alessandro De
Gasperi of Italy.
De Gasperi.
Yeah, in 8:36, and then Denis Chevreau of France in 8:39, and then Carrie Lester took out the women's race in 9:27 ahead of Annabelle Luxford of Australia in 9:38. And then it was actually an age group competitor in the 40 to 44 category who was third over the line. So Linda Guinness-Wow of France. So the third pro was Nicole Valentine of the USA.
Wow, great stuff. I tell you what, that is an incredible performance for an age group athlete, and on the Ironman France course, 10:21. That's fair play, hats off.
Did you see the quite another impressive age group performance out there? Rob Barrel of Netherlands, right?
Yeah.
Was 28th overall, 9:56. What age group's he in, Rob?
Is he 60 or is he 65?
He's 60 to 64.
That's bonkers. 28th place overall. Now, do you know his background?
I don't know.
Right, so
oh my goodness! Sorry, I've just read something. He qualified for Sydney at 42. The age of 42 for the Sydney Olympics.
He was one of the guys back in the day finishing. I think he finished fourth at Kona in the days of Mark Allen and Dave Scott. So he had a couple of fourth places at Kona. He then made a comeback to go to the Olympics at 42, and then he goes 9:56, age 60 something. It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, that is.
Proper legend of the sport.
Quite some athletic career.
I had a bit of a read around his backstory yesterday when I came across it, and there's some great articles out there about how he ended up doing triathlon because he kind of found he was good at it, and him and his wife decided to travel the world for a couple of years and kind of pay the bills with triathlon, and they just kept on doing it for years and years and years and made a living from it. So it's a brilliant story for those of you who enjoy that kind of freewheeling lifestyle idea in your head.
That's cool, because there's a Canadian couple, isn't there? John Ragg and his partner, and John's done some crazy amount of Ironman races, and I remember meeting them at Ironman Bolton, probably 2012.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what sort of almost, why'd you do all of these Ironman? And I guess it's a bit of they just love it.
Are they an older couple in the sort of 50s?
No, they're more like 60, 65.
Right. I think it's the same couple.
Honestly, he's late 60s, and he's done well over 200. And
wow.
I said, yeah. Honestly, they have done loads, but John in particular has done well over 200. And I was asking, how do you sort of go from one to the other? And he was like, well, it's almost like we don't do loads of training between, because the race is it.
I suppose when you're fit enough to do one, if you're not hammering yourself trying to chase a PB, you probably bounce back in a week and you're ready to do another one 2 weeks later, right?
Yeah.
Still 200 Ironmans is a lot of Ironmans, isn't it?
Yep.
You gotta love riding your bike to do that, Helen.
That's not going to be me, but so his wife, they met in the food tent at Ironman Arizona in 2006.
Oh, how sweet. Eyes met above a hot power bar.
So there we go. Rob, shall we announce the winner of the Precision Hydration competition?
Here we go. The winner of a £100 personalised hydration bundle is...
It is Tom Moon from Somerset. So well done, Tom.
Congratulations, Tom. PH will be in contact with your Precision Hydration goodies, and we hope that the summer is nice and long and hot for you to make the very most of them. That's brilliant.
Definitely. And remember, if you order stuff with Precision Hydration this week and you use the Oxygen Addict discount code, you will get a free 1 litre Precision Hydration bottle.
That's right. So use the code Oxygenaddict15 to get 15% off as well. Great. So let's go over to this week's interview of the week. We have none other than multiple world champion Chris McCormack talking about Super League Triathlon, amongst other things.
Yeah, that's right. We got Chris on to talk about the Super League Triathlon, which is going to be coming to Jersey in a few, just not that long, Rob. It's literally about a month and a little bit as the time we're recording right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Hamilton Island looked brilliant, didn't it?
Yeah.
So we get to hear a little bit more from Chris about Super League, and you'll hear it. He does not hold back. I very much enjoyed it. So here we go. Here's this week's interview of the week. Chris McCormack, or Macca, hello and welcome to the Oxygenaddict Triathlon Podcast. Thank you very much for your time.
Not too easy, Helen. Thank you. I'm close to home. I'm close to you guys in Europe, so I'm not usually on your time frame. So it's great to be on.
Well, that's what I thought. I'd make the most of the opportunity of you actually being in a similar time frame. Where are you at the moment, and what are you up to? Are you sorting out more venues, Chris?
I have been, yes, but I promise. I've been travelling everywhere the last few weeks. I've been from the Caribbean back through the States and back to Australia, and now back up to here to Europe. But at the moment, I'm on a daddy-daughter holiday with my middle daughter, Sienna. It's a holiday we've been planning for about a year, so we're having 2 weeks, just the two of us, and nothing planned, just cruising along through Italy. She's named after the city of Siena, so we're going to go and visit Siena and spend some time on a boat. We've rented a boat and just really chill out. We haven't had a lot of opportunity to spend a lot of time together because I've been working so hard on Super League, so this is about her for the next 2 weeks, which is fun.
I love it. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, too easy.
So Super League, you mentioned it there. Where did it all come about from, Chris, the idea for it?
Really, I think, being a former athlete myself, we raced in a very similar style of racing back in the early 90s and mid-90s in Australia called the Formula One series. You sort of reflect as you retire as an athlete, and, when you start to look at what you thought was your best racing and the most enjoyable racing of your career. And without question, that Formula One short, aggressive racing was the most entertaining and satisfying racing I'd ever done. And, I was looking at the sport through different eyes now. I was running the Bahrain endurance team and, when I was running a big sports centre up in Phuket, and we started talking about, I believe, the demise in the sport at the professional level. What we were doing in the 90s and early millennial and what they're receiving now in the sport, it's just night and day. So, we talked about the potential of bringing triathlon back to a broader audience and bringing it back to television. So I'd made a lot of contacts in my sport over the years, and we sat down with some of the TV networks, asked those specific questions. Why was triathlon not hitting mainstream media? And it was fundamentally that media content has changed, and it needs to be a lot shorter and less predictable, and you'll get that mainstream media. So we went to the drawing board and started planning a Super League and something that was spectator friendly, and that was about 2 years ago, and it's taken 18 months to actually get the first event up and running in Hamilton Island and to get the capital together to actually deliver a professional series, and that's sort of how we got here.
Did you think that Hamilton Island would be as successful as it was?
I believe in triathlon. I did. I don't think anyone else did, and that was the irony of it all. I think when you get the right people around you and you realise that the athletes in this sport are the best athletes I've ever seen. Through the eras, what they're doing now is incredible, but they've just never had the platform to showcase their skill. And I'm a mega fan of triathlon. I recall vividly, I haven't missed an Olympic Games on television. I watch everything. And I remember watching Rio this year. last year, Olympics, and I had a big Rio viewing party at my house, and I was so pumped and excited to watch this event. And I remember halfway through the swim, the 50 or 60 people that had come over to my house who weren't triathletes, they were friends who were there to watch the event, they started moving off and talking in their groups, and they weren't really engaged in it. And I thought, oh man, it says something about the sport. So I, with Hamilton Island, I knew this short dynamic racing, people's attention span, this non-predictability, mixing things up, people were going to like it, fitting it into a tighter package on television, and the quality of athletes we had would be good. And I wanted to spend the money on showcasing the athletes. It's not about a brand, it's about them. And when we were trying to tell this to people and sponsors within the sport, they thought we were mad, because everyone's been touched by triathlon in some capacity. We wanted to really lift the bar, and I thought we did a solid job in Hamilton Island. I think we're going to do a far better job in Jersey. You're going to be blown away by what we're planning in Jersey. I just think it's time to start thinking that triathlon has all the ability of a sport to be a tier 1, tier 2 sport. And, that's what my headspace is. People call me crazy, but I'd like to position it there.
Did it take a lot of convincing to get the athletes there, or did it take a little bit of check waving?
A bit of both, yeah. I think, the good thing is, being a former professional, most of these guys sort of know you as the old fogey guy that used to do triathlon pretty well. So you can pick up the phone, and get to them quite comfortably without having to go through the agents all the time. And so, I tried to speak to them about the vision, and tried to speak to them about what I wanted to do, and really talk to them. I said, if you think of football, I want to be the Champions League of football, the best of the best, small numbers, race in a series for huge prize money and huge TV exposure. So whilst you're looking at checks and money and titles, I don't want to take any of that away from you. This is how we want to do it, and this is why triathlon is not working anymore, and this is why the sport needs to change. And here's the key sports around the world that are successful, and this is why they're successful, and this is why triathlon is not. And there's a lot of intelligent professionals in our sport, and when they bought into it and said, you know what, we're prepared to give this a crack, and they all signed up, and it was pretty cool. I was proud of them. It was pretty cool, and they're all very, very happy. I'm hoping. We'll see how we go.
Who was hardest to get there on that start line for Hamilton Island?
Ironically, it was the not so much. The top guys were relatively easy to get. And, there's all these rumours that we paid hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds to get these athletes. It's just not true. Some of the young aspiring athletes that I thought would be a lot more open to this because of the platform, I don't think they realise what we're trying to do. Now it's a different story. We've got hundreds of athletes sending us in their resumes, I want in, but for Hamilton Island it was, I've got my federation wants me to do this training camp and that training camp, and I need to do this and this, and I'm like, no problems. But I think that middle tier, when I say middle tier, that top 20 professional athlete was tough to get. But the Brownlees and Gomez's and these guys, they knew exactly what I was talking about, and they're very, very easy to get on board. Yeah.
Chris, just explain why in that initial one in Hamilton Island, why was it just the guys? Why wasn't there a women's Super League as well? Because that has been one of the criticisms from that first round. Yeah, it was huge criticism. I was blown away by it because all the best professional women in the world actually knew, because we'd been speaking to them, that there was going to be a women's series. All the ones that were jumping up and down obviously hadn't been spoken to because they weren't, in our opinion, in the top 25 in the world. And that being said, we, Super League as a brand wanted to have the best of the best. And after speaking with Gwen and Nicola and, all these girls, they were, at the time, were pregnant with the racing, and we opted to say, look, if we're going to roll out Super League, I want to roll out the best. So we'll roll out the best men, and all the girls are aware that round 2, when everyone's back in racing, we'll start the women's series. We didn't realise they had to be on the same weekend. I didn't think it would be such a mega thing, but it actually was. And now in Jersey, as we promised, here are the women, and they were all aware of that. So we were quite taken back by it. I understood everything. I understood everything it was saying, but I was sitting there thinking, why aren't people
asking the girls, we've got them on contract, why? And then people actually did their research and went, oh, but nowadays with social media and everything, people bark and bite before they actually have any information about anything. So, we were taken aback by it, and as we promised, here's the women's series, and we're super pumped about it as a day, and all the best girls are there. Sans Gwen, because Gwen's having the baby in the next couple of weeks, so she won't be ready.
Do you wish in hindsight that you had the women there in Hamilton Island, a women's event?
Absolutely not, no. No, I don't. I think we're a commercial property, it's and I mean, and the girls know this, we're a commercial property, and our brand pillars are the best of the best, the Super League. And, a lot of the criticism was, you could just put other girls in the series. I said, no, we're contracted the best athletes in the world. And I don't have to have the race on the same weekend as the men. In fact, in the future, we're hoping we have 2 standalone series, and maybe we have 12 destinations around the world with 6 for men and 6 for women. It doesn't need to be in the same place. It's, I spoke in depth with this with the ITU, and I understood the criticism, but it was very, very premature. I was like, please contact the girls. Here's the contracts. We're in negotiation. We will be launching the best women's series in the world, but Super League is about the best racing the best. ITU and that can have the World Cups and other races where second-tier athletes can move up. But Super League has taken the best 25 women, best 25 men in the world, and putting them in a series where they race each other. They don't avoid each other. They race each other. And so I'm not about rolling down the ranks and just putting other people in. That's just not what Super League, the brand pillars that Super League was being built on. And that was part and parcel why we didn't bring the girls to Hamilton Island. And they will be in Jersey, and they're ready to rock and roll. And they're all very, very excited about it. And it's going to be absolutely epic. And we're going to move forward from there.
And you do, on going slightly longer distance, you do hear a lot of female pros saying, it is a shame that the start lists and the fields in pro, 70.3 and Ironman races, they just don't have that depth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I've found since I've retired, especially, with social media nowadays, is I was never a person that, if I had an opinion, there's one thing to have an opinion, but I always actioned it. Like, I feel nowadays a lot of people throw stones from the corners, and I said this to a couple of the girls. I'm like, look, girls, you can't blame Ironman, and this is for the guys as well, Ironman, for doing what Ironman does. And the entire business model of Ironman is about mass participation events for amateurs. That's where they make their money. And the pros, if anything, are a problem. They bite into the bottom line. If I was a shareholder in the company, the professional element of this sport's not needed at the Ironman level. It's just not needed, and anyone who wants to dispute that is mad. And so as you dilute Ironman races by having 250 now races around the world, when I was racing Ironman, there was 10. Right? So it actually meant something to be an Ironman champion. Like it actually had some substance and kudos that was valuable to a sponsor. Now I meet people who have won 6 Ironman 70.3. I've never heard of them, and that's it's both a good thing and a bad thing. It's great for old athletes like myself because our legend lasts forever, because it's hard for young kids or young athletes to make a name for themselves nowadays because it's so common in the marketplace. And that's the difficulty with the dilution of fields, and that's part and parcel of the reason why I wanted to create Super League was, you had take on the men's side. You had Jan Frodeno running around the world saying, I'm the best triathlete in the world. You had Alistair Brownlee running around the world saying, I'm the best triathlete in the world. In the marketplace amongst triathletes, we can differentiate that. But to the average punter at home, it's a little bit like boxing. Who's who? What's going on here? So with Super League, it's like bring them together, make them race, and determine the champion, and put it in a package on television that the person who doesn't do triathlon finds entertaining, can relate to a character, put an athlete first, and change the sport that way. And the purists will probably be mortified by it, but ultimately at the end of the day, that's what we're hoping to do. And as an economist, as a banker back in my earlier days, everybody knows value comes from supply and demand, and if you've got too much supply, the value of something depreciates. And Super League will always be minimal racing of the best and the best, and that makes it a value product.
How did you choose Jersey, and why did you choose Jersey?
Jersey, ironically, I have a couple of good friends that live in Jersey that came down for Super League Hamilton Island, and we wanted to get in the UK without question. We'd focused all Super Leagues rollout really between Australia and Asia. We were very Asia focused because that's where the company's based, and there's a lot of investment in sport at the moment within Asia. But we knew, the UK at the moment in the triathlon space is like an enigma. It has just exploded, and it's really off the back of the success of the Brownlees and Vicks and Helen and on the pro end, you dominating Chrissy Wellington. It's incredible.
Yeah,
and,
everyone knows who. Let's go total basic. Everybody knows who the Brownies are. They have been on the breakfast sofas. They've been across all the papers. They know who they are. As you say, they are household names now. So that helps massively, doesn't it?
Yeah, without question. And you're seeing that at the professional level. You're seeing that with the depth now within the UK, because there's this culture that the Brownlee boys have nurtured within British triathlon that is a win culture. And it's amazing, and that's carried across into the amateur ranks, and the sport has just exploded within the UK. So from my end, I was like, we need to deliver an event in the UK. I think the interest will be very, very big there. You've got BBC. There's a broader understanding about the sport, and you've got two iconic brothers that can really hold the sport there and give it some momentum. So we're looking for venues, and obviously the London triathlon, everyone thinks of the UK, you think of London, but London has an iconic triathlon as it already, and we thought about Manchester, but at the time of the year we were like, and then Jersey.
It'll be raining, Chris, in Manchester.
Yeah. But we were trying to think of those iconic cities in the UK, and then Jersey, I was like, well, Jersey really is really an interesting option for us. And then we went across and met the senator and had a chat and said, look, it's a banking hub, it really suits the demographic of the athletes who do triathlon. A lot of them are in that field, and it's sort of a destination race within the UK, and there's a lot of ability for us to scale an event there. So you can have these pillars of male and female racing of the best, but we can actually build out a mass participation festival over the next few years in Jersey. It's relatively unique, and the island was very, very supportive of that. So it's nice to be able to have those conversations at that level, and we were excited about it. So we thought, we were actually planning for this time in 2018, and we talked about it in house and said, you know what, we've got the capital. Let's go to Jersey and let's launch 12 months ahead of schedule, and that's why we're here in 8 or 9 weeks. It's coming up quickly.
So the course in Hamilton it looked stunning on TV, very, very technical, and you had that crazy hill. Is it going to be similar in Jersey?
Jersey won't be as hilly. It'll be very, very technical. It'll be a completely different looking course. Hamilton Island, even when we looked at it on television, we were actually blown away. And that's part and parcel of the selling point of Super League as a product for sponsors and for host venues is we can almost cut a tourism piece around the racing. And for Hamilton Island, that was the big plus. Hamilton Island's a small place, and when we looked at it on television, it looked enormous and massive. There's only 1,700 beds on the island, so it's not we're like, far out. This looks incredible.
Super League took them all.
Yeah, we literally did. The island was at 100% occupancy with us there, and you look at some of the footage now, and the streets look relatively empty. We're like, well, but they were ecstatic. It's a 5-star holiday destination. So with Jersey, it's a city, and in St Heliers, and the course is right downtown in the marina. It's very, very tight and technical, flat, but where it's going to be a lot cooler, a lot different looking race. But it's going to be a technical, tough bike course, very, very tight through the marina. So, and again, mistakes are going to cost athletes, heavily. And we've made some tweaks to the formats after watching the Hamilton Island event more than 100 times and being very, very critical of what we put out. We went, okay, this didn't work. This was a bit confusing. What do we need to change? So the triple mix in particular, we're running now in a pursuit style format. So if you watched Hamilton Island, which was race 1 on Hamilton Island, where we did the swim, bike, run, 10 minutes rest, bike, swim, run, where we're actually, before we had made them always start as a mass start. Now it'll be swim, bike, run, and then 10 minutes rest, but then it'll start in a pursuit format. So the winner of that will go, depending on how far behind you are, you'll go. So basically the last race first across the line wins the day. That's how we're going to do that one. But the Jersey's going to be a really cool event, and we're expecting, because it's so tight, you put 10,000 to 15,000 people down there, which we're anticipating will be there at the event. It's going to look like a World Cup football final. It's quite amazing. Yeah.
And how do you get the athlete? Like, what's the decision in your mind of who you want on that start line? Do you get in touch with them? And obviously, you mentioned before they're now sending your CVs. Is the start line what you want? The start list, even?
Yeah, it's difficult. We wanted a lot. We wanted a few more Ironman athletes, and it's hard with the clash close to Kona. And we had a lot of the girls on the list, and we discussed this. When we opted to go to Jersey a year early. We just, I'm happy with the start list. What we're hoping and the rollout with Super League, and I can say, is that the league will be 5 to 6 races every year. We've got 4 other destinations that we will be announcing. So people are like, what's next? We've got our own plan on how we will announce. And we will have a series. It will be the richest series in the sport, and it will be the most televised series in the sport. And we're trying to create a brand here that has value to the professional athletes, because they're our asset in this space, and these guys, and to their sponsors, where the sponsors actually see this as a valuable entity for them to pay bonuses and come and support us and be part of this league. And without being disruptive to ITU or to Ironman, we still want these athletes to win Olympic gold medals, Commonwealth Games gold medals, and we're very, very attentive to that. All the events we run past the ITU now to make sure we're not clashing with everything. So we want. I'm not here to take over. I'm here to add value. And what we're hoping, what will happen, it will be after season 1, the top 10 athletes will get a contract, absolutely transparent, with the first athlete getting paid a set amount of money, which they know what it is. It's in their contract, which is quite a lot. And athlete number 10 getting paid a set amount of appearance fee. There will also be a series pool of money, and we want athletes to race for those contracts. There will then be a qualification series globally that we are rolling out. We just announced an event yesterday. We're going to put one in the US, where the professionals who are sending us their resumes, we're going to send to these qualification events. And they race for contracts. You get a contract, you're racing in the circuit. So there's 10 spots. So like the Ironman, where they qualify 50, we're qualifying 20 athletes. 10 have already qualified from the year before. 10 will be able to come through the qualification league. And there'll be 5 wildcards every year. And that's where we want to keep it. We're thinking 25 will be the magic number of men and women, and there needs to be a value add. And hopefully from the championship series, which is the top, we're going to have the mass TV appeal. We're hoping to build that TV appeal down where there's actually a value in the qualification league, whilst the next generation next is racing for contracts. So that's sort of where we want to put it. And at the end of the day, it's TV revenue and sponsorship that pays the bills, and it's sort of the chicken before the egg for us. A lot of the sponsors we spoke to, and we are well funded, so we're not falling over ourselves to need sponsors. So we're trying to say to these sponsors, because a lot of them have already tasted triathlon in the past and gone, not for me. We're like, man, we're not triathlon. We're triathlon done right. It's, there's a true ROI on this. There is a real commercial value to this. When you sponsor an Ironman, you got 3,000 people there, and that's it. With us, we're going out to 500 million households, and now with our partnerships with Lagardère, who are doing our TV distribution now, this could be up around 1 billion households. It's putting triathlon where it needs to be, and if professional triathlon can't work with the Super League, then it can't work as a commercial entity, in my opinion.
Initially, was the ITU, were they very welcoming at all at the beginning, or were they like, what the hell are you doing? Like, why are you trying to do this? This is how it works, blah, blah, blah. What's that relationship? What was it like, and what is it now like?
I think it was funny because I sort of had when I rolled out the Bahrain endurance team, we had some, it was a similar thing. No one wanted to know anything about us, and then suddenly we had a big checkbook, and everyone was like, "Oh, this is the greatest," and then everyone who didn't get on whinged and complained. And it was sort of the same with Super League. We were trying to contact everybody. We were trying to get a hold of everybody. We were around at the Rio Olympics and prior to that and chatting. No, everyone thought we're just a bunch of morons. And I'm like, far out. We reached out 10 or 12 times. And it was sort of like the incident with not having a women's event. And no one cared about us until the day after the last race on Hamilton Island. And everyone saw the footage and everyone saw it and went, oh, and suddenly we're getting bombarded with, and that was from the ITU, that was from everybody. Going, oh, you guys are horrible, you didn't have a women's race, you didn't do drug testing, you didn't do all these things. I'm like, far out, how much can we reach out? And since that time, it's been nice because we were able to sit at the table like grown-ups and will be accepted at the table and say, look, everyone has their insecurities, and this is what, they heard from us what we wanted to do, and they're like, oh, okay, and this is who we're doing it with, and this is why we're doing it, and we're able to nut all that out, and now there's absolute support from both of it, which I'm happy about. I was a triathlete myself. I loved my ITU racing. I was a world champion at ITU, and I don't want to disrupt anything. I think the ITU do an incredible job, and I think Ironman has its space, and I just want to be able to exist for the betterment of professional racing. I think they realise that now, that we can add an element to the professional side, give a face to a lot of their professionals, and they're going to benefit from our spend. A rising tide brings up all ships, and that's a good place to be in now. So I think everybody's happy. I'm hoping so. I'm sure someone will complain about something, but we try and be very transparent. We're not here trying to take over the world. We're just trying to do a good by a sport that's been good to me.
Chris, what about mixed relays? That's obviously going to be coming in at Tokyo. Will you have anything like that in future Super Leagues, or are you going to leave that to the Olympics and ITU?
I think I don't think we can do the mixed relay. I don't think because it's an individual race. I love the mixed relay format. I think it's brilliant, and but I don't know how we talked about potentially the league may migrate into a team type. We're getting all these sponsors, so it could be a point in the future where, like Formula One racing, I'm making this up, Alistair Brownlee, Johnny, and Gomez race on Specialized with a certain sponsor, and maybe in that case we could start to bring a relay element because the team is a part of it. But for now, it's an individual race, and we'll leave the mixed relays up to them. But we do see an opportunity because to some degree, when you look at the mixed relay selection, this is an Olympic gold medal, and picking that team for a country is important. And usually they're going to, now the selectors are going to have to look at, okay, we've got if it goes to sprint distance, we've got these young athletes racing the sprint, but is this young athlete better over? It's like, if you looked at athletics, it's like trying to pick a 1,500 metre team off a 10,000 metre, completely different looking athlete. But it's been that way because they've just done that. It's migrated downwards. There's the ITU team, and this week we've got a mixed relay, so start running a mile. Well, and it's just worked that way, but it may be a different looking athlete. I recall when drafting came to triathlon, I was just out of juniors, 95 was when Spencer Smith and these big iconic athletes at the time, they became obsolete because the style and look of the athlete changed because the entire dynamic of triathlon changed. This mixed relay is doing the same. I think you're going to see a much younger athlete, a much faster athlete, and suddenly, when you're picking the Olympic team, you have to assess whether you shop for a younger athlete to win that gold medal because you might have the opportunity at the sprint distance in the overall race, and they may find that athlete I'm trying to get to in the Super League racing because we may be developing that style of athlete out of the individual racing that we're presenting.
A bit like Jake Birtwistle did incredibly well at Hamilton Island.
Yes. Yeah, and they've just gone on to win the Worlds, haven't they, on the ITU Mixed Relay Worlds in Hamburg last week. Jake's a phenomenal talent, and that's exactly the type of athlete. Matt Hauser, who was also in the team with Australia in Hamburg the other day, they're the future, and you're going to see this this changing of the guard, especially in this style of racing. And I think it'll correlate across to ITU racing, especially when you've got a young kid who may come through the Super League style formats who's racing a Brownlee, who's never gone to war with these guys, and suddenly over a mile he can run next to the Olympic champion. It brings a different confidence about an athlete that when you now step up to a World Cup race or a WTS event in the world circuit, you're not intimidated by a Brownlee presence because you've raced him week in, week out, and you've been running with him in the Super League. So it brings a different confidence and a different look to the entire sport, and I'm excited about that prospect more than anything.
You mentioned Brownlee there. How would you assess his transition from the ITU to stepping up to 70.3?
The guy, I've said it a million times. The guy's the Halley's Comet of, you see talent like this once in your lifetime. He is incredible. He's sort of gone across to Ironman and 70.3 racing has been spectacular, but he's just sort of gone across because I may as well do it, and it was incredible. In the championship race, he was a little bit exposed, but I don't think he was on that week. But he'll win the 70.3 worlds if he wants to. If I was him, I wouldn't be rushing to Ironman. He doesn't need to. I'd grab as many of those 70.3 titles as I could, and not really damage your speed, especially with Tokyo. And the guys, I say it to everybody, there's never been a better triathlete that's ever walked this earth. He is unbelievable, and he can do anything he wants if his head's in the right space. But I think his jump up's been great, and I always argue with anyone who questions it. I'm like, please, tell me how you're going to beat this guy. It's not.
Future Ironman World Champion?
If he's, I wouldn't rush across. I think it's funny because I think the sport tends to push you in this direction because you feel you have to, and I think you move. I went through this. I'm not comparing myself in any way to Alistair Brownlee, but I recall vividly. I was at the top of the ITU game in 2001, and I'm number one in the world, and you sort of get all your sponsors. I was American based, were pushing me to do Ironman. Hey, you got to do Ironman. You got to do Ironman. And I sort of had the same conversations that Alistair said. I'll go and do Ironman. I'll win it, and then I'll come back and do Athens Olympics. That was where my headspace was, and I realised I jumped across to Ironman but my head was still in the ITU. My head was still looking behind and looking. And you get exposed pretty quick, right? You mightn't get exposed at some of the local Ironmans. You can get away with the wins, which I was getting away. But in Kona, you better be committed because that is a horrific, horrible, horrendous day, and you ask yourself a million times why you're doing it at that race, and you better be able to give yourself a solid answer. And if why you're doing it is because I'll get it out of the way and then I'm going to go back to Athens, that ain't enough to win your Kona. So. If I was Alistair, I wouldn't be rushing across there. I'd be grabbing another Olympic gold medal with his brother and the girls in Tokyo, and looking at a 2021 Kona assault. He'd still be young enough with a proper Ironman focus, but he'll win it if he wants to. He'll win it if he wants to. Yes.
There we go. The one and only Chris McCormack. Hells, I thought you did a brilliant job interviewing him. I think I'd have been just a little bit intimidated talking to him, mate, myself. So well done.
Oh, thanks. It was interesting to get his thoughts there at the end about Brownlee, and clearly he reckons he should just go get a few more Olympic medals and then go step up to Ironman and have a shot at Kona, but he doesn't think he should do it before Tokyo. So I thought that was pretty interesting as well.
Yeah, it's always difficult for an athlete to know when to move distances, isn't it? And I think the thing that people often underestimate with the Brownlees is just how driven they are to go out and exercise because they really have fun doing it. and probably Alice is going, I really want to go to Kona because I just love the sport and it just looks brilliant, so I want to go and do it now.
Yeah, and I guess you're wanting to be the best in the world across every single distance. Yeah. And as Macca said there's all these people almost telling you should go and do it. I think Alistair Brownlee knows himself well enough, and he'll know exactly what he wants to do.
And I wonder whether it's like the fresh challenge aspect of it as well. He's been incredibly dominant over the Olympic distance. Maybe the competitor in him wants to go and try something slightly different and challenge himself in a slightly different way. Maybe he feels like the competition just isn't quite there over the Olympic distance. I don't know.
He definitely has said that, hasn't he? That he wants to mix things up. After Rio, he definitely wanted to mix things up and have a go at the longer distance, and clearly he's going to be on that start line for Chattanooga for the World Championships, and he'll have a blooming good,
good bash at that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it'll be interesting. And then all of what Macca was saying about the Super League Triathlon and the way that that's going to be expanding, and different, doesn't necessarily have to have men and women racing at the same weekend around the year. And I thought it was very interesting how they've clearly having to come to agreements to, he was saying, I don't want to tread on the toes of the ITU. So yeah, and probably changing a few people's opinions about the whole thing. As he said, everyone thought that they were just a bunch of morons. So
he doesn't hold back.
Not at all.
Love it.
So yeah, brilliant. So very many thanks to Macca for his time, for coming on the show and for talking to us.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the second instalment of that. I think it's great, and the fact we'll see different athletes excelling over different distances. I thought one really good point he made was you're going to get different athletes who are doing really well at this because we're asking them to run really hard over a really short distance. And when the relays come into the Olympics, maybe that's going to help develop the athletes that are going to do well there. So
definitely.
Yeah. I remember ages ago a coach at British Triathlon saying to me there was a particularly young lad who was astonishingly quick over 800 metres and 1 mile on the track. Really strong swim biker, but couldn't run quite to the same ability over 5k or 10k. And he was saying, imagine if super sprint came into the Olympics. Because he was like an English school standard 800 metre runner, like sub 150 I think he ran for 800 metres.
Wow.
So that kind of speed isn't going to get matched by a 28-minute 10k runner. So it's going to be interesting to see where that goes, really, because everyone assumes the Brownlees are shoo-ins for the places in the relay, but maybe they won't be because of that aspect of physiology.
It's and that's what the Super League Triathlon does as well, doesn't it? It just throws other names into the mix completely.
Yeah, totally. All right, cool. Interesting stuff. Right, so let's jump over to do this week's Coach's Couch question, sponsored by teamoxygenaddict.com. If you're interested in triathlon coaching and a triathlon training plan, we're well aware that at this point in the season is, a lot of people have done their A race for next year, and a lot of the big Ironman and half Ironman races have happened this year. With the way the craziness of the entry system has gone, most people already know, Helen, their plans for next year and will have already entered the races like Austria, Germany, Roth, Ironman UK for next year. So if you're interested in a year-long membership to Team Oxygen Addict, which will be a training plan for the whole year to get you there, it'll be membership of our private Facebook group for coaching advice from me. Get over to the website and check that out, and we can have conversations around how we might be able to help you towards your goal for next year. And on that note, Here's a question from David Irwin for this week.
Yep, so David says, any advice on running shoes off the bike? Socks, light speedster or marathon ones?
So I think the advice is going to be different here depending on a couple of variables. Firstly, the distance that you're running in your race is going to make a big difference. So if you're racing sprint or Olympic, you've got the opportunity to go and race without socks on. My personal advice is, even at Olympic distance racing, you've got to be really certain that the running shoes you're going to be wearing are super comfortable without any socks on, because we've all seen those people cross the finish line with blood caked on the toe side of the outside of their shoes, and what seemed like comfortable stuff in the middle of the living room actually turns out to chafe the edges of your little toes off. Anything that's going to ruin your ability to come back from that race and do some more training is going to be bad. And I think there's no question you're going to be faster running without socks on, but if it wrecks you for the next week or 2 weeks because you can't run or bike because your toes are so sore, it's worth spending the extra 10 seconds to put socks on, I think. My advice at half Ironman and Ironman distance is different. I'm going to say always take the time to put socks on, because the comfort element of that over whatever it is, an hour and a half through to 4 or 5 hours, take the time to put socks on. Shoe wise, I think it's a similar split decision depending on what you're racing on. I think if you're on the sprint and Olympic distance, you can get away with those light racing shoes, with the caveat that you've tried them out in your faster training sessions and they're comfortable. I think for half Ironman and Ironman distance, you want to be wearing your real running shoes that have got padding, the ones you'd go out to do long races on, and that will hold true for everybody all the way up to the very fastest athletes at the front of the field. I think you'll often see pros running in racing shoes or racing flats. I don't think that's such a great idea even for our faster stage groupers, because we tend to look at those pros and think, well, that's what they're doing, so that's what I'll do. I think we've got to accept that at the very front of the field, people are taking an all or nothing approach to race day, and it's very difficult to hold your running mechanics together off the bike when you're really tired. There's this argument to be made that lighter shoes are going to make you faster, and that's true, but that's not going to be the case if you end up not able to run because the shoes haven't got quite as much support as you used to. So I think racing shoes maybe for sprint, maybe for Olympic. Definitely go with your training shoes or shoes with some support in for marathon distance and half marathon distance races.
Can I throw my
Absolutely.
thoughts in? Okay, cool. So definitely sprint and Olympic. I'm a no sock kind of girl.
Yeah.
But I will have put talcum powder in my trainers, and I will have also put a little bit of Vaseline on the back heel of my trainer. That actually helps get your foot in a little bit quicker in transition.
Yeah, good advice there for sure.
And then half iron distance and full long distance socks all the way, and I will have put talcum powder in my socks as well, ready to put them on. I tend not to go with socks on the bike in a half distance or a full distance, but oh no, I think I did actually. Iron distance, I'm pretty sure I put socks on because it was cold in Bolton last year. Don't know, no idea, yeah. But definitely socks for the run. And Rob, I have never owned a pair of racing flats, so I wouldn't even know. I have one pair of trainers and I will use them for whatever, but I do have a pair of trail shoes. That's different. And also my final point is laces. Rob, what do you reckon? I have race laces, again in all my shoes regardless of distance, but I think, I don't know, would some people say no, you should go for proper laces if you're doing full distance? Don't know.
I think if your elastic laces are comfortable for you to run in for that duration of time, then brilliant, go with it. And for the majority of people, the majority of the time, that's the case. I think if occasionally can get a little bit restrictive, and it's not such a big deal in sprint and Olympic, and probably not even at 70.3, but over the marathon distance, if you're going to get uncomfortable feet, and you know, people are in a fair amount of discomfort anyway at the end of a race, aren't they, at the end of a marathon, it might be worth spending that extra 30 seconds to a minute lacing your shoes up properly if you're not at the pointy end of the field. But if you've trained in them, and I know the majority of triathletes, they have those elastic laces in their shoes all the time. If you've trained in them and they're comfy and you're confident with them, then great, go with that, I think.
Yeah, I've never had a problem with them, using them and running a long way. The one time I did, Rob, there was one time I think I did go without socks at an Olympic, and I think maybe from about 8k, I was like, oh, I can feel my feet now.
Yeah.
But when I did it last time in Llandudno, it was fine, no problem.
I think it also depends on how comfy the shoes are without socks on. It sounds obvious to say, but some of the more modern tri shoes are designed to be running without socks on, and so they're a little bit fleecy inside and really comfy. Some of the old style racing flats are designed to be light above all else, and you know, the seams can be really quite rough in there, and I remember I've tried a couple of times in sprints and just ruined my feet for the sake of saving that 30 seconds. But if you're at the point end of the field in a sprint, those 30 seconds can be the difference between you finishing on the podium and you finishing 10th. So, to a certain extent, that's going to determine what your approach is, really, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. There we
Yes,
go.
indeed.
Rob, right, news. Let's move on. So, David, thank you very much for your question for Coach's Couch. And if you've got a question, then you can always get in touch. We are at OA Tri Podcast on Twitter, and we will get to some others that were sent in over the next few weeks.
Yeah, cool stuff. Right, our news this week. First up, I want to give a shout out to Guy and the crew from wearetribe.co. They sponsored the show for a 6-week block, and you remember us talking about their 2,000 kilometre Run for Love, which was a fundraiser to help stop human trafficking. It was a duathlon across Europe that I can't remember where they went from, but they ended up in London, didn't they? It was somewhere absolutely bonkers, wasn't it? Do you remember where it was? Was it Sarajevo?
I'm pretty sure Sarajevo. I'm sure it was Sarajevo.
Sarajevo to London. They had over 250 people join them as part of it, and I think I remember reading they raised they've raised 90k so far, and they're well on the way on the push to hit their 250k fundraising target, which is brilliant. And I saw an article on them in my mum and dad's Daily Mail, which is nice, isn't it? To make the broadsheets, as it were, or the tabloids, as it is.
Nice.
But great to see them in. Massive achievement to do something like that. So really well done to them. And if you haven't been over to Tribe and got yourself one of their sample packs, get over and get one, because they've got some great, delicious tasting products. I'm saying this even though they're not sponsoring us at the moment. I think they're fantastic, and you can get a whole box of goodies for £1 delivered to your door. So get over and check them out.
Oh, it's that kind of thing, Rob, that, the Run for Love, that sort of crazy 2-week full-on intense, 2000k, 9 countries, 30-degree heat.
Sounds like your idea of a honeymoon, Helen.
My idea of a honeymoon?
Yeah, you and Rich. It's the kind of thing you guys would do for fun on your summer holidays.
Yeah, probably. But it's it's the adventure of it, isn't it? It's just, it's great, and all the memories that they'll all have, and everything that they would have seen and experienced, and they would have had really horrible moments and amazing moments, and yeah, it's cool. It's getting me excited.
Yeah, it's brilliant stuff, and I wish we could have been there to go and do part of it. If I'd not been away, I'd have gone down and at least done the last leg with them. It would have been ace. Interesting to see what they'll try to top that one, huh?
Maybe they'll do a around the world thing.
Yeah, maybe they will. Maybe we'll be part of that, hey? Cool stuff. Right, now then, next little bit of news. Tell us what you found on Twitter, Helen.
Well, I saw that who you've interviewed a couple of times on the show. He just wrote a very interesting article, which was entitled "Why, as a triathlete, I'm anti-Kona." Now, not saying I agree or disagree with anything that has been written in this article, but you should definitely have a read of it, just because it raises some very interesting talking points, and I thought that our listeners would probably be also interested to read it. I think that was why I said it was a brilliant article, just because it did raise a few different points. And so
we had a fair bit
some
of
the
people
points
chirping in on Twitter, didn't we? That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So it's basically in Hal's article, he says, "I must not want it bad enough," and then he says that it's very expensive for what he says is not really a proper World Championships within the age group, because you're not necessarily racing the best, you're more racing the people that can afford it. And his point being that, if you go to a race and maybe it rolls down to 27th place, he's saying that it's money motivated. So it was just very, very interesting. So we had quite a lot of response to this. The question was literally, do you agree, do you disagree? And so just a few of the people who got in touch. So Stephen said, yes, World Champs is top triathletes. The rest should be acknowledged as racing on a World Championship course with the top ones, like in Leeds. Daniel Giesel says, yeah, I agree. Ruth Purbrook says, lots of valid points. Interesting read, and I agree with a lot of it. although I'm still very much looking forward to my first Kona experience. James England says, so many good points, but the one that still sticks out for me is about it being easy said once you've been, because Hal has himself been to Kona. Jason says it's an insane amount of money to fork out for World Championships. Duncan Shea Simmons says Kona is awesome. If anybody has the slightest chance of qualifying, give it your best shot. It's amazing. Fran says at $900 for an entry fee, there are more awesome things in this world to spend your money on. Tom says, Tom Moon, I agree, but I also agree with the point that you should do it once. And he also says, I want to qualify, but properly, not via the roll down. And then Rob Harper got in touch as well, and he said it's no different to age group worlds, really. So, like the sprint and the ITU and the Olympic distance world championship. He says, we all know it's not a true race and we're being exploited, but many go anyway. And really, Rob, that's probably a good range of opinions of people that got in touch with us. So it clearly did get a bit of a debate going.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? The number of people people feel incredibly passionate about it in both directions. And there's lots and lots of people who get into the sport and are driven by this idea of qualifying for Kona, and it becomes like the motivating factor, because we all need something to get us out of bed and to drive us at 5 o'clock in the morning in the winter when you drive into the pool. And I think Kona is that. There was an interesting comment this morning. I interviewed Richard Mellick from Team Free Speed this morning before we were on, and that show will be out next week. And one of the things that he says as part of the interview is he gets this feeling when he has Team Free Speed applications. He says, I want people to apply who feel they could reach the podium in Kona, because my experience was, if I said you can apply to be a member of the team if you feel you're of the quality to qualify for Kona, he said he thinks pretty much everybody who races Ironman feels like if they had a good day with a following wind, they might get lucky at the roll down and qualify for Kona. And that's an interesting thing, and I think it's a really beautiful part of the sport. There are so many people who feel that, like, if luck goes their way and they have a perfect race, maybe that'll happen for them, and it makes the whole thing very alluring, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think that is, it. Yeah, definitely, and it is a really, really interesting point, and that does absolutely differ from people who will be competitive at the age group world championships in Hawaii, and people that are going perhaps more to be part of what is undoubtedly an incredible once in a lifetime experience.
Yeah, cool, good stuff. Like a bit of debate.
They definitely got a little bit bickering on there, Rob.
Yeah, well, it's people are passionate about it, aren't they? And some people, you can see there are some people who are very motivated by the idea of qualifying, and some people are kind of over the idea of qualifying. And I don't know. I often wonder.
But it's brilliant, because if we all thought the same, well, then life would be pretty boring.
That's
wouldn't it?
right. If you got a lottery ticket to go, would you go if you hadn't qualified? That's a question that often divides. Maybe we should ask that for next week. If Ironman phoned you up and said, we've decided we're gonna let you go and make a film about you, even though you haven't qualified, would you go, or would you turn around and go, no, I haven't earned it?
And with that, you'd still have to pay.
Good question. Yeah. I think if you still had to pay for yourself to go, and there's like a lottery ticket.
But someone said, look, here's an entry.
You've won an entry. Yeah. Would you go? Because
lots
of people go,
there's
no way
question.
I would go if I won one of those legacy slots. And lots of people go, absolutely I'd go. Are you crazy? Let's ask that for next week, Hells. That could be our question. That'll get some debate going.
We had George on, didn't we? Remember, George was one of the first... he was on quite near the beginning of the podcast, Rob. And he had...
That was when it was
place,
a genuine lottery still, wasn't it? You just entered a lottery to win a ticket.
Yep.
And he had a great time.
Yeah, exactly. He loved it.
He loved it. Yeah, okay. Maybe that's one to set Twitter on fire next weekend, mate.
There you go. You don't want to set it on fire too often.
It's all good. Right, I think we'd better wrap the show up there, Hells.
I think we should do that, Rob. Yes, I have a turbo calling at some point.
Yeah, I've got my bike calling me as well. So next week we're going to have an interview with, as I said, Richard Mellick from Team Free Speed. We've got loads of good stuff from him about improving your aero position and things he's learned from being a professional bike fitter, and also about his age group racing team, Team Free Speed. So until next week, thanks very much for listening. I'm Rob Wilby.
I'm Helen Murray.
And you've been listening to the Oxygenaddict Triathlon Podcast. Have a great training and racing week. Be safe, and we'll see you all again next week. See ya.